Welcome to the Get It Done podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Ryan. Today we're interviewing Val Miller. Let's get it done. Oh my gosh, that's great. Do you like that pause? That's just really good. New StreamYard user here. That's just beautiful.
I figured it was coming. That was awesome. That was worth the wait.
The Get It Done podcast is sponsored by Team Get It Done, and I'm ready to just get this done right now. Val, I'm super pumped to have you on because, you're a leader in the podcasting space, somebody that I look up to and like to watch all the things that you have going on. You're a marketing manager for the Art of Home Ownership, just killing it on the mortgage front, providing a ton of value for really homeowners everywhere, but loan officers as well. And you are the host of Feel Good Marketing. Val, welcome to the Get It Done podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Jimmy. I am honored to be here. It's nice to be on the other side of things because I'm used to it's a lot of pressure to host. You have to think about what you're going to ask next. So this is a little more relaxing. I'm excited to be here.
I honestly like hosting better. When I'm interviewed, it's because I feel like I want to ask all the questions and I want to I want to ask them more of this stuff. So it's kind of like it really is. It's a shift in how you work things out. But cool. So we're going to talk about a bunch of things: podcasting, where we see the market going in the future of the mortgage industry. But really, this podcast is really all about Val's story. You're killing it here with a successful podcast, and we want to hear about who you were before you were the host of Feel Good Marketing. And the best place to start with that, Val, is where were you born? What was your early years like? What were your parents like? What were the first, few years of your life like?
Oh yeah, we're diving into it. Okay, so I was born in small town Pennsylvania. Reading actually is the quote unquote city that I'm from, but really from a farm town. So grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania, went to the same high school that my dad did. So we're really hometowners in this area. I always was into sports throughout school. So I played, from a young age. I started out playing basketball and soccer and softball, anything that you could think of. And that was really, I feel like sports has really, as I look back, has shaped a lot of who I am today. And I feel like some of those things you have to grow up and get to a certain point to actually look back and say wow, that's where I picked that up from. Was a lot of it was sports. So all throughout high school, I really narrowed in on softball. And that was that was a lot of my life growing up, actually, because I started to get into playing on the travel teams and your life was consumed by it. I never had weekend plans because I was always at tournaments. But it was so much fun. And like I said, I learned a lot from it. I think it shaped to who I am today. My parents are awesome. I look up to them a lot and how the relationship that they formed and how they live their lives today, really. They're always traveling, always exploring. They still actually genuinely like each other, which I feel like is also rare. So life is good. I can't complain at all. It's not one of those struggle stories when I was growing up and I came from this really tough place. I really didn't. I was blessed growing up around here. I still live around the same area. I'm about an hour from where I grew up, but stay connected to a lot of friends that I grew up with, a lot of family that's in the area. So, life is good.
Well, that's awesome. And I mean, it kind of just goes right into feel good, that's just kind of what you are and what you exemplify. That's really cool because, we were talking about this before we hit record, I've recorded people's suicide stories before and the most the worst circumstances. I recorded a guy, his parents came here from literally illegally immigrated from Mexico, didn't speak English, so many crazy stories. But for you, it's more so look, I had a good upbringing. What'd your parents do, by the way?
Yeah, my mom was she typically worked in a school. That's always how it was growing up. So I would actually, over the summer when she would still be she would have to do like a summer program, and I would go in with her. And I always wanted to be a teacher or like work in a school. So I was always following my mom around with her job. And it was one of those relationships where I didn't want to admit that I liked what my dad did. So I always just shut it out. I'm like, no, I will not get into business, because he was always a sales manager growing up. He works at an industrial supply company. And I don't know if it was like a take your kid to work day, I think, that was happening at his job. So he brought me, and I started seeing all these business people, and I was just kind of fascinated by it. I didn't really know what they did. I didn't know what went on at this company at all.
But you liked this?
I did. I don't know. It was kind of, I think I just like the environment of like business people. I don't know what that was, because I was younger at that point. But then I really started learning about what he did, and he started to connect me with other people at his company. So I remember actually leaving softball practice one day to have a call with like the chief marketing officer at his company, just to like pick her brain and ask her questions, because I thought that maybe I wanted to get into marketing. So that was probably my sophomore year of high school, I want to say. And after talking with her, I was like, yeah, this is fascinating. I like loved everything that she had to say. So that's when I realized that pretty early that I wanted to get into marketing. It was never really a question of what I wanted to do. But yeah, I kind of gave in and said, all right, I'm going to find out what my dad actually does for a living. And it was really cool. So I don't know if I'd ever admit that to him, because he gets a big head, but it is.
That's so funny.
It's pretty cool.
Well, going back to that meeting, I guess, what about it made you, I mean, were you like fully committed? Like, I'm doing this, or was, I guess, like, what about it was so interesting to you that you headed in that direction?
Yeah. So my dad, I don't know if it was like that meeting specifically that really, I don't know if there was one hard point where I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. It was kind of a transition into like, okay, I like the business world. I like learning about what my dad does in sales, but I always thought, and my opinion about this has changed over the years, but my dad always told me that I would be good in sales. And I said, no, I'm not a salesy person. I don't want to be pushy, because that was my interpretation of what sales was like, you have to be pushy, you have to be a salesperson. So I never wanted to get into sales, but I liked the creative side of things. I was like into art growing up and painting. So when I learned about marketing and being creative, that was the part of it that I liked. Was it's kind of the business world, but you get to have fun with it, basically. And getting into it, that's exactly what it is. And it's so much fun. I love it. Well, so it was a good choice.
And I mean, it makes sense though why you would kind of like, I guess, pushed away from it in the sense that, like, look, if you're following your mom around being a teacher, teaching, the mentality of a teacher is the opposite of sales. Like, it's like, it's just, and you're not taught sales in school. That's just, it is not like something that anybody promotes, even though like half the people that get out of school, they end up selling something, or I mean, something to that effect.
Trying to sell something.
or trying to sell something. So I love how, gosh, I love your upbringing. I want your upbringing. My goodness. I want your upbringing for my kids. Right? So a good friend of ours, Renee Rodriguez, he talks about how a lot of times in our lives, we're either, something happens to us between 9 and 13, 8 and 12. I think he says one of those two, but basically we're everything that we do is we're either looking to honor our past or to heal our past. Mm-hmm. How would you say you would answer that question? What are you trying to honor? What are you trying to heal?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, okay, can you explain a little bit? So honor your past is basically like you want to continue doing the things from your upbringing. That's what you liked about your upbringing, or what you didn't like about your upbringing and what you want to change.
Well, let me share with me. So for me, my parents got divorced when I was very young, and I didn't see my dad for a really long time. And not to get into the heartthrob story of it, but I felt as though I didn't belong, like I didn't fit in. And part of the reason why I do even a podcast is I want to feel belonging. And I do both. I want to feel like I belong, but also I want to feel as though I'm giving that to somebody else. Like I care about you and I care about your story. Therefore, I'm going to interview you and highlight you and promote you. And I mean, I guess that's kind of like a why for me about like, why do you do a podcast? Well, that's kind of like what it is in a, without going like, I recorded like a 15-minute story about this where I'm literally bawling, crying, but like truly that's for me what it is. So I guess, yeah, just to turn it back on you, what would you say that you're, I mean, maybe you're not healing something, maybe you're honoring something. What is it?
Yeah, I think so. Growing up, I had a very, I guess, adventurous childhood. Like that's something that was always kind of promoted within my family was like, just do what you want to do. Like if you want to go on a trip, don't think about all the money that you're going to pay for this trip. Just like book the trip and do it because you really only live one time. It's so corny and cliche to say, but that's something that was kind of instilled in me at a young age was like, pay for the experiences, just do what you want to do in life because it really is so short. And just like appreciating the people that are around me all the time was also something like we were a family. We always appreciated each other and spent time together. And that's something that I would continue honoring throughout my life is like just appreciating people so much and letting them know on a regular basis, I think is something that a lot of people don't do very often. And it's something that I try to very actively let the people around me know why I appreciate them, help them in any way that I can. Just have that like giving mentality is something that's really important to me and I want to continue doing regardless of where I'm at in life. So I guess, did that answer the question? Was that a good answer? Okay.
No, that's really great. I love it. I love what you're well, you're such a podcast host, you know, like, I don't know, is that the answer I was wanting? Well, you know, I mean, truly, it's just about getting people to talk. And this is why I told you, I don't like being in the other side of the seat because I'm constantly evaluating myself as I'm talking. And like, I don't know, did that sound good at all? Yeah. When on the other end, it's like, yeah, that's fire. That's good. I really like it.
Right.
So, okay, we're moving on to high school. I always love to know this about people is what was your first car and what was your first job?
Okay, so, well, the job came first. Do you remember those Toyota commercials where like Jan was sitting at the receptionist desk when the people walked in?
Yeah.
I was Jan. That was my first job. I was the Jan. And it wasn't I didn't work there too long because I ended up getting a restaurant job instead, which was I would almost consider that my first real job because I worked there for 7 years. Wow. I was like one of those places where it sucks you in and you're like a hometowner and you can't get out. But I did get out, but that was like it kind of shaped me as well. Like the restaurant industry, I always say the mortgage industry is kind of like the restaurant industry with more money. Like that. People are like vulgar, rough around the edges, but I like it. I think because I liked the restaurant environment so much.
And you can make a ton of money being even a teenager. I mean, you can make great money actually. Yeah. I mean, more so than you could doing, for instance, being Jan at the car dealership.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
What was your first car?
My first car. So I didn't get a car until my sophomore year of college, actually.
How'd you get to work?
That's a good question. I think I just used to take my mom's. I think I just drove my mom's car any chance. Yeah, because she would be home by that point. So I would have to like pawn rides off of people to school. It was the worst. But God. I guess it shapes me.
Me too, though. Because I did buy a car. It was a 1978 Mustang, 4-speed, 4-cylinder. And the coolest thing about it was I could say that I had a Mustang. But it's literally, if you look it up, it's like literally one of the ugliest Mustangs that you ever have.
But you still had a Mustang.
But it didn't run. So I would literally be doing like the same thing. Well, it did 50% of the time. Not maybe 75% of the time. But I'd be stuck borrowing my mom's car too. That's so funny. Yeah. But okay, so take us to.
I didn't even answer your question. My first car was a red Chevy Malibu, and I still have it. It's still my car that I drive.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. I love it.
Her name is Babe Breeze.
And you named your car? Say it again, Babe Breeze.
Babe Breeze, because she's a Malibu. I know. I'm the worst.
No, I love that. Okay, so take us to college. So you said you didn't get this, didn't get. I want to call it right, Babe Reese,
Babe
like
Reese, yeah, like the
Babe Reese?
drink.
So Babe Reese didn't enter your life until college years.
Yep.
What did you do in college? What did you go for? I mean, a lot of people
Yeah.
never go to college because they didn't want to, but you probably wanted to.
Yes.
And what'd you go for? What was it about? Where'd you go?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I actually started at Bloomsburg University, which is a state school in Pennsylvania. It's like medium sized. It was a D2 school. So I went there for marketing. And I decided I wanted to try out for the softball team. I did not have this in mind when I was playing in high school. I didn't make any attempt of getting recruited or scouted. So it didn't go over very well. I tried out for this team, and I remember I showed up. And I'm like 5'4", like pretty small person, and they were just all trees. Like I was like, I don't belong here at all. But I took a shot at it, and it actually the tryout itself went pretty well. I was like pretty proud of myself. I'm like, all right, maybe I have a shot at this. No, they already had their team like scout, like they were already set to go. I did not make it. So it was kind of boring. Like my first year of college, I was just like, there's not a ton to do in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. So I wasn't really into the party scene at that point. So it was a lot of just like the being creative, like drawing on the weekends. I was such a nerd. So I did they had a really good business program, and it was a ton of fun. Just like learning and getting into that. I guess you could say like meeting with some people that were professionals back in the day. And it was really interesting to me. But then when I went back after Christmas break, it was for second semester, I was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. It's not fun. It wasn't a super traumatic experience, but I was just like, there's nothing special here, and I don't want to go here anymore. So I actually reached out to a Penn State branch campus that is closer to my hometown. I reached out to their softball coach, and I'm like, I'm thinking of transferring. Do you guys have any spots on the team? And since it was local, she had known me from high school. She was like, absolutely, yeah. Like I was a pitcher. She's like, we need a pitcher. That would be great. So I transferred to Penn State Berks, and it was the best decision I made. I had so much fun. And I think that's where, like looking back, I think I gained a lot of confidence because I felt like, okay, this is something that is bigger than me. I belong to something that is a team. And it was just a really good feeling. Like we had a good team. We were actually accomplishing things. So it was really cool, and it was a really fun college experience. I will say I was not a great student. I'm not gonna lie. It's not that I got bad grades. Like I pulled it off, but I just didn't go to class a lot. Like I slacked off because I was just one of those like stupid jocks walking around campus, like I don't have to go to class. But I got through it. I'm doing okay. So it was so much fun though. I loved going to Penn State Berks.
Did you graduate?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing though. You have the piece of paper on the wall. Like it doesn't say your GPA on it,
Right. Exactly. And I graduated, but I never actually got to walk at graduation. I didn't have a college ceremony because we were in softball playoffs. So we were like hosting, because we did pretty well. So we hosted our like regional playoffs, and everyone else was down like walking at graduation, and we were playing softball. So
I
still graduated.
But truly, that's what you went for anyway. I mean, if you really boil it down, I mean, you went for a marketing degree, sure.
Yeah.
But and that's important, yes. I don't know. Sure. I would argue, do you really use it? Does it really matter?
No, I didn't. I hope none of my college professors ever come across this, but I learned very little in college. Maybe it's because I didn't go to class, but.
But I would say that even if you did, like, I don't know, it's wrong for me to say it because I literally never went to college. But I feel as though people that get a job right out and don't go to college right away, I feel like they're so much more ahead because, like, for instance, I sold cars. I was at the car dealership selling cars. And that is a humbling business. I would say it's just like being it's not just like being a server, but like you get people that are crappy to you, or like and want to beat you up. And to learn how to deal with that and to kind of develop that tough skin, the professional tough skin is super important. But a lot of times people lack that. And then they go to college, they get a degree and they think that there's just going to be a job waiting for them when it isn't. So what, I guess, while we're on that topic, what do you wish you would have learned in college? What did you expect you should have learned from a marketing standpoint?
There's not a lot of real world application when you're going for a marketing degree. Like you'll learn some of the stuff like when's a good time to post on each platform and that kind of thing, which is really, when you get into marketing, a very minute detail. Like it's not that important. Yeah. So it's just, we didn't really learn a lot about the strategy behind marketing and like putting yourself in your potential clients' shoes or like your target audience. Those were things that you really didn't get into the psychology of it at all. I really learned that at my first marketing position. And I mean, I think there's always, and this could be another thing that they should have set the expectation for in a marketing career, is like, you have to be so resilient as a marketer because there will be so many things that don't work. And that's not like, we just never talked about those kinds of things. Like, what's it going to be when I'm in a marketing position? It was more setting you up to basically be at like a Google and just very structured, I guess I would say.
Well, right. And I think that, look, I totally agree. And it's just like they teach you to live inside a box of these rules when that's not what it's about at all. It's actually more about trying things, and it might suck. My good friend Kyle Draper, we got on a live the other day, and I was just like, look, I don't know anything about StreamYard. Let's just do a live and we'll just talk about it. And then we did. And then we had fun, and Kyle's like, yeah, maybe this will suck, but I don't care. Like, we're just going to do it and put out some content. And maybe nobody watches, maybe hundreds of people watch. I don't know. But then it ended up being a great, like, well, whatever. I thought it was great.
That's all that matters, though,
Truly, that's exactly it. That is all that matters at the end of the day. But it's not about when you post. It's not about any of that. It's just about putting out content that you feel good about. And that's a good transition to the Feel Good podcast. Is that your first podcast? Is that your only podcast? Have you had other endeavors in this?
No. Yeah, this is my first. So I started it, let's just say it's not been a year yet. I want to say maybe like 7 months.
How many episodes?
I started it. What'd you say?
How many episodes do you have?
I believe we're at like 11 at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And we were kind of dabbling in, because I was talking with so one of my bosses, Zach Cusack, he has a marketing agency as well. So I talk with him a lot about, strategy and like what I'm trying to do. And we had talked about it, and I was like, if I would start a podcast, should it be like art of homeownership related? Should it just be interviewing art of homeownership partners? And he said, no. He said, you do what you want to do, and it will just naturally build your personal brand. And, we just have the expectation, like, if I'm building my personal brand, only good things can come from that, whether it benefits art of homeownership or not. And that was like the perfect answer, especially as like a leader and a boss. He really, like, they're fully supportive of whatever I want to do and like building my brand and just learning constantly. So it was great. And I have a lot of fun with it.
Well, that's super cool. And I want to expand on that. But before I do, take us from graduating college to art of, like you're starting your podcast.
Yeah. Oh, so it's there's a lot of twists and turns on the journey.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the twists and turns.
So when I was at Penn State Berks, this was the day I did go to class, and I was in a marketing class, and they brought in an alumni he had his own marketing company at that point. And it was called Melior Marketing, which I think Melior means better, or in like Latin, maybe. Okay. So this guy, I don't know. It was a very small detail. So this guy comes in, his name was Ed Burns. And he was talking to us about LinkedIn, like using LinkedIn to connect with people, establish relationships, and eventually get a career. So he came in and told us how to connect with people. And when you connect with them, make sure to leave a message, like learn something from them. Don't just connect for the sake of connecting. And I'm always the one that is like talking throughout the whole session, like answering questions and raising my hand. Probably like annoying when I was growing up. And so this guy, I was like answering all of his questions. And afterwards I said, thank you. And then I had connected with him on LinkedIn and I said, hey, I actually do marketing around campus. I was like helping out one of my professors and I would love some insight. Like I would love to hear what you think. So he actually met me on campus and was looking at the marketing that I was doing. And he said, I'd actually like to hire you. I need someone to do some work for me. So would you be willing to do it? And, I was still in school. So I'm like, yeah, I could use some experience. So I started working for him when I was still in college. And I didn't really know if I had expected to work for him once I graduated. And we got close to me graduating though. And he said, I'd really like to hire you full time if you don't have, or not if you don't have any other options, but if this would be the option that's best for you. I think we work well together. I think it would be great. So I worked for him and it was a lot of those small clients that there are a lot of startups, but they don't really see the value in marketing. They just know that they have to do it. So they want to get the cheapest marketing possible. They don't want to put a lot of money into it. So really you don't ever see success. So it was like a really slow start, I would say, because I was learning a lot and I think it was really an important part of my journey. But it's not like we really saw it take off at any point.
Well, you got to learn over and over and over and over again what doesn't work, basically.
Right. Yeah. And so we actually started, and I feel like we didn't have the right to do this at all, but we actually started doing some consulting with people, like going in and telling them what to do with their business and like how to market and things like that. So that's where I think I learned a lot of the mindset part of it. Like he would go in and do these consultations and he would say, okay, what is your ideal target audience? Who are you trying to reach? And like, what problems do they have? How can you solve those problems? That is, I think, where I learned most of what I know in marketing. So it was a really valuable experience for me.
Your eyes lit up when you said that. Like, you're like I got to teach people about how this works. Like,
right.
I mean, really,
and I wasn't like, I feel like I wasn't actually, I didn't have the credentials to be doing that, but I learned,
I mean, what credentials do you have now?
More experience under my belt and actually like hands-on experience, I would say.
Quantify that. I mean, but seriously though, like you knew more than anybody in the room just having a marketing degree. But the truth is that like, if you're on social, you're active on social, you're actually using it, you're creating content, even if you've done it 10 times, the person that's never done it, you have a lot of value to offer. But if you've done it hundreds of times and hundreds of times where it doesn't work, I mean, that's just the thing that like define credentials. And the thing is that like you mentioned that they're telling you like when to post on Facebook and Instagram. I mean, for the time, maybe that was a thing, but now that isn't a thing. And like, how is that's not going to take you through like that credential doesn't matter. I think it's just like actively doing it. And yeah, I'm like, I can tell you loved doing that. I mean, it's just like,
it was awesome.
So this is Ed Burns still. You're still working with Ed Burns.
Yes. At that point I was, and then eventually we ended up like the company shut down. Like it doesn't exist anymore.
What happened? How did that?
We just weren't really doing well. Like it's a really tough business to get into if you're not going to really, like we didn't even market the marketing business, to be honest with you. Like that's how, like looking back now, I'm like, I feel like I could have run that business. Like I feel like I could do it now. But it was just one of those like really slow starts, and you get all these really small clients, and when they don't see success, then they drop it. They just stop marketing their businesses.
Makes sense.
So it was just kind of one of those things where you never like broke out of that ceiling and continued being a business. So that ended. And at that point I wanted to travel. Actually, I said I was right out of college, still living with my parents, and I was still working at the restaurant as part-time as well. and I decided that I wanted to plan a cross-country road trip. So I didn't really go career hunting right off the bat. I said, I'm going to take just a few months. I took a road trip out to California for like 3 weeks, and it was awesome. I was so glad I did it. And again, it's not one of those struggle stories. Everything fell into place perfectly because when I was in California, I got a call from a recruiter that I was working with. And she said, hey, a company in Philadelphia is looking to hire. It's called AIM. Would you be interested in it? And I wanted to move into the city. So I said, absolutely. So I had, right when I got back, I had an interview with AIM. And I think I had 3, like it was like 3 interviews for an entry-level position. And but I got the job. I started working at AIM in Philly. I moved there. I worked there for about 10 months. And that was kind of where I broke out of my shell a lot when it came to marketing. Because when I was working for Ed, not to throw him under the bus, but we would be helping these clients and I would want to just like create things. I've always been more of like a short-term doer. Like I just want to do something and get it done and get it out there.
Yeah.
So I would try to write blogs and record video content. And it was always one of those things where it's like, well, you could do better than that. It could be better. And it could always be better. Like everything that you create could always be better. But I'm not anything close to a perfectionist. So that was just like differences in personalities. And then when I got to AIM, though, it's very much they encourage you to kind of build your own personal brand and put yourself out there. And that's what I did. So I had started out, I was working with the lender partners. So a lot of learning the loan types, which companies had which loan types, because these were all brokers. So they were always emailing in asking like, where's the best place to go for this? So it was a lot of learning the mortgage industry right off the bat, which was really valuable for me too. Like having the knowledge now is really helpful. And as I was at AIM, I think I had 3 different positions there. I got into the community management side of things, which was really getting the community engaged. So putting out whatever content they needed, anything that would be helpful for the brokers in their business or partnerships, anything like that. So it was a lot of me creating my personal brand. That's where it really started to take shape, was just getting to know people and connect with them, which is awesome. I love the people in this industry. And then I ended up, my last position was with the vendor partners. And that's where I met Zach Cusack, who's at Art of Homeownership. And we hit it off right off the bat because we're both marketing nerds. So we would go and have these meetings that we're supposed to be talking about the partnership, and we would just talk about marketing the whole time. And I saw one day that they were hiring a marketing manager, and I was like, I think I really want to just see, it's not going to hurt to see what it entails. And he's like, we're really looking for someone to basically do what you do at AIM. And it just really made sense. I love everyone at Art of Homeownership. So it was a really good decision for me. And it's taken shape. So when I first joined the team, I remember Zach telling me, try to delegate as much as you can, with like the social media management, delegate that to other people so you can like create the content and put yourself out there, which I still get to do. But I also appreciate and feel a lot more confident now that I have been more hands-on with the social media and the marketing of AOH, because now I have full control over like posting the content, getting people engaged, posting content that does create value, and like just creating resources for the mortgage community. So I've learned to appreciate really getting down into the trenches and like actually doing the marketing, not just coming at it from a high level. Cause I feel like I need that experience. I need to like gain that confidence, which it's been a game changer. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I love that.
And it's so fun. Yeah.
I love that. So like, and I would argue it's the same thing being a loan officer. You really can't, it's just not effective. You can be a high level executive. You can be a C-suite executive at a mortgage company and not know anything about mortgages. It can be done, but it is so much more helpful if you have been in the trenches. You've actually called a real estate agent and had them hung up on you. You've actually called a client and had them tell you to pound sand. You've actually had people tell you your rate's too high or whatever it is. It's difficult as for me as a loan officer to respect somebody higher than me in a higher position than me that hasn't actually done it. And for you to get down in the trenches and actually create the posts, create the content, do the actual pieces that are difficult. I mean, here, it's hard to have a podcast. It's hard. And it's hard. I would say that the hardest part is just, well, for me anyway, speaking from experience, is that very first podcast. It's the hardest thing. Just hitting record the first time. Does this even sound good? And I remember doing it, and I remember how nervous I was. But as soon as I started recording, I felt great. Yeah. And then it was over, and that was good. I want to just go back to AIM for a minute. AIM's a great company. I mean, a great organization. And I bet you got to meet a lot of great people over there. And
many. The
mortgage broker community, it's all a bunch of basically, it's a lot of one-man shops, a lot of business owners. And some of them are bigger organizations, have, big teams or whatever it is. But I think that community of like, they're all like AAA personality, start the business, maybe we fail, but let's go after it. Going back to that time, working with vendor partners, building the community, what would you say was, I guess, like the most beneficial learning piece that you gained from AIM?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my initial position, was where I learned the most because I was so, I don't want to say in the dark, but I didn't know anything about mortgages at all. So coming into the business and just digging into, I would go in the Facebook group and just scroll and look for like things that I didn't know. Like, what does this term mean? I barely knew what a mortgage was at that point. So that was just being uncomfortable and not knowing anything was probably the best thing that could have happened to me because I was forced to. I mean, I would not have been able to do my job if I didn't figure it out. So I think it's almost like a skill that I learned at that point was just learning to figure things out on my own and not going to ask someone right away. Like, do some research. There's a ton of resources out there, just figuring things out as I went. That was really beneficial. But I would also say that I think the confidence that I developed getting to meet everyone was something that I don't know if I would have found that anywhere else. Some of the people on the Art of Homeownership team, when I host our webinars sometimes on, we have like a weekly Art of Homeownership webinar. I do some of the Facebook Lives, the podcast, and some of the people on the team will say, like, how can you just like talk to our partners, these like middle-aged men that are like successful? And the thing is, I have talked to so many of them and I realized that they're just human beings. Like, everyone is just a human being, and truly no one's better than anyone else. It's just what you've been through and the time that you've taken to get to where you are. So I think that the thing that I learned that was the most beneficial is that you can really talk to anyone. And if they're going to look down on me in any way, that's more of a them problem than a me problem. So I've learned to just gain that confidence. And I think that's benefited me a lot.
I love that. I think that's like an underrated skill. Like, it's something that it takes a minute to do that, because I'm sure you did have a little bit of fear talking to your first big wig at a company or big wigs at companies. And then you're right. You realize that these are just people. They struggle too. They don't have it all together. And if they're going to talk down on you, you're exactly right. That is their problem. And there are plenty of people that are like that. Don't get me wrong. And I'm sure you've come across them. I have for sure. But like what you realize is that the people that are the most happy, joyous, successful, like the people you want to emanate and like follow, they're normal people, and they're going to talk to you like you're a normal person too. That's and I would say that's if I'm trying to impress upon an industry in a way, I would say that that's something that I think our industry as a whole lacks. I think that we do come across as these pompous people. I think we do come across as these people that are loaded full of money and they don't work at all, like that type of a thing. I think that's something that I know that the guys at Art of Homeownership are trying to change that perception. Be a value leader, help people, actually help them. You really care, and that's cool that you found that. just by talking to a bunch of different people at AIM.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I will say I think this speaks to, so Ryan Grant is the creator of Art of Homeownership, great person, and someone that I like genuinely look up to. Like Ryan, if I become half as successful as Ryan Grant, I'll have a good life.
Right.
And
I agree.
he's also, it's not that he is one of those pompous people. He's like a genuinely good person. And one of the moments that really like hit that home for me was I was kind of going through, as I said, in marketing, you have to be very resilient. So there are times when you feel like I felt like I was just failing, like I wasn't doing a good job. I was just figuring things out as I went. And I don't think that was the case because we're our own worst critics, but I was just being really hard on myself. Right. And I had a meeting with the guys at Art of Homeownership. And at one point I said, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like word for word, that is what I said.
I love it.
And any other leader would be like, why did I even hire this person? And Ryan said, can I let you in on a secret? He said, I feel like that all the time. He said, I feel like I'm in over my head with half of the things that I do, but it's because no one else has ever done these things before. So like, isn't that such a cool feeling to be doing this for the first time and just like figuring things out? God. And it was just, yeah, you would never expect any, it's just like such a good leadership quality to have. And I figured it out, like to this day, and that was only a few months ago. And now I feel so much more confident just because I worked through those struggles on my own, had the support of these guys that are far more successful than I am. So yeah, it was a good learning experience. Like those are the kinds of people that I want to be around.
I mean, the leadership team there, Chris Ledley, Sosi, Josh Metal, Danny Huranyi, and then of course Ryan Grant. I mean, all these guys are just epic people in their own rights.
Yeah.
But like Ryan, just to give you another just quick story about Ryan, I was going through a tough time a few months ago as well. You know what he did? He called me and checked in on me. He just called and checked in on me. Hey, how you doing, brother? What's going on? You getting through it? And like, I think that speaks so much volumes. Like I tear up kind of just thinking about it because it's like he genuinely cares. And I love that he said to you that like, I feel like I'm in over my head too.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, right?
Like what leader is going to put their heart out there and be that vulnerable? Yeah. He's one of a kind,
Yeah.
Really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to talk about podcasting. I want to nerd out on this a little bit. So why do you have a podcast? And I guess what's the point? Why have a podcast?
Yeah, it's a great question and something. So the why behind me starting a podcast is genuinely because I like doing it. I like talking to other people in the mortgage industry, learning from them. Like half the time I come out of episodes with takeaways. Like I learn things from the people that are on the podcast. So it's kind of killing two birds with one stone. And the why behind it was really, I also enjoy just helping people with their marketing. Like if someone can watch an episode and have a takeaway and improve their business in some way, then that's a win for me. Like that's really the only reason that I have a podcast. But I guess I wasn't super intentional going into it saying like, this is exactly what I want to accomplish with the podcast and this is how I'm going to do it. I genuinely just do it because I enjoy it and I feel like it benefits a few people. Like it doesn't have to be a huge audience. I don't have to be reaching thousands of people. But like I said, if I can help one loan officer and they can improve their business in some way, then that's great.
I love that. We're going to caption that. That's just a great, I really do. I love that because you're speaking straight to me when you say that. I would agree. I talked to Kyle Draper about this a lot. He actually asked this like flat out to a room full of like 1,000 real estate agents. He asked, would you rather have 10,000 followers or one? And of course it's a trick question.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to say 10,000. Okay. Well, what if the one is Oprah or Pitbull or Gary V? You know what I mean? Like what of course you want the one. So I think that we as content creators, podcasters, whatever you want to call us, we oftentimes chase the vanity metrics, which how many views did you get? How many downloads did you get? I would argue the real metric that you want is somebody calling you and say, hey, I really love what you said here, and it really changed my life.
Yes.
If you can do that with one person in a podcast, I think that's like I'm getting chills because I've had people tell me that, or I've had people tell me like, Jimmy, this was like the best interview I've ever done. Thank you for doing this. Like that just like I could get nothing else out of it. Like literally like 10 people listened to it or something, but that was like, I'm fulfilled with that. Speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah. And I love that so much because this is kind of I guess, phase that I went through, you could say, because it is very easy to get into that mindset of like, it's like you want more attention. That's really what it is. You want to post something and you want everyone to tell you how great it is and get all these likes and comments. But you really come to a point where I had to like tell myself, and it was after I read the book Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. It's a great book, and it's really applicable to a lot of our society because of social media and the way that it does kind of brainwash you. And, because I was going through that time where I wasn't feeling like I was doing a great job. I didn't feel very confident as a marketer. And I just realized how much that I still have to learn. But when you looked at my social media, I would put out a piece of content and everyone would, not everyone, it's not like I'm a celebrity, but just saying like, wow, this is great. You're a rock star. Getting all these like affirmations that I was doing such a great job. They have no idea what I'm doing for my job though. Like realistically, they have no idea if I'm doing a quality marketing job for art of homeownership. They're just seeing what I'm putting on social media. So it was like a moment where I had to tell myself, you're not putting out content to get these affirmations and to get the attention. Like you have to be putting out content hoping that it is helping someone or adding value to them in some way. And that was a big mindset shift for me. And I feel a lot more confident now that I've gone through that phase, and I've really focused on the back end of like doing a genuinely good job in my marketing position rather than more surface level, just social media content. So I think it is a very tough thing to get out of that mindset. And I think I still actively have to work on it. But I think it's a really important distinction to say, like, am I genuinely successful or do I just look like I'm successful?
Amen. I love that. I mean, I have nothing to add. Like, that's just like, caption that. We'll put that together too. That's good. That is great micro content right there. That was really just great. Okay, I want to talk about. I have a few questions that I ask everybody that come on, but before I get to those, in regards specifically to loan officers that maybe want to get on a podcast or start a podcast or do something on social, maybe not on a podcast, but like, I guess they're not on social the way that they need to be. They know that they're not. What advice would you give to somebody that, maybe needs to, but isn't, wants to, but isn't? How are they going to help somebody get over that hump?
Yeah. There's so much I could say about this.
Let's do it.
Okay. First of all, I would say mindset is the first thing that you have to have going into starting to market yourself. Because I think a lot of the mindset or the expectation going into building a brand and being active on social media is that you're going to put out 3 videos or 3 pieces of content and get deals from them, which is not the case. So having that long-term mindset going into marketing, just saying like, this is now just a part of my business. It's not just something that I'm trying to see if it works. It really has to be a long-term, and I'm talking like years long-term, because you just have to stay top of mind. The goal of social media and marketing yourself is not to put out these pieces of content and have someone reach out to you at that point. I'm going to put out valuable content consistently over time so that when someone needs what I'm offering, I will be the first person that they think of. And that's a really important thing to get over because, like I said, it's very easy to say after 3 or 4 months, okay, what results have this personal brand gotten me? And if it's none, then you're going to be likely to stop doing it. So having that mindset of like, okay, this is going to be another part of my business, and to not measure the ROI on everything that you do. which depending on your personality type, I think that can be really tough as a mortgage professional because you want to measure the results of everything. But at the end of the day, building a brand is so much more than just what is my exact return on investment from doing this. It's really just being top of mind, getting more referrals from people. And sometimes you won't even be able to track that back to social media. But I was talking to a mortgage broker, Ben Lavender up in New York. He came on my podcast and we were talking about the long-term play and how you have to be consistently active. And the one example that he gave was one of his clients had put in an offer on a home. And since Ben's name was on that offer, the guy said, yeah, I've actually seen him on social media. And he gave him a call and like let him know. And that client ended up getting the home just because it was a familiar name that someone said, okay, he knows what he's talking about. He puts out valuable content all the time. So you can see it in a lot of different places, not just someone messaging you, asking you to get their mortgage for them. So that would be my first bit of advice.
Wow. I want to dig into all of this. Just really quick. You sound exactly like Phil Treadwell when you say persistent, consistent effort over time. That's really what it's all about. You can't just do it one time. Like for instance, like my first podcast, I think I had like 9 listens and I was just like nervous as all heck. I've had more on my first episode has had more plays in the past week without me advertising it at all. Just like somebody wanted to listen to it. And I just so happened to have built it to a point where maybe 9 people are going to listen to it. I'm exaggerating with that, but like it really is more plays with 0 advertising when like I literally had a post every day about podcasts. Like, you know what I mean? So like you really do have to have that long-term goal. And it's years long. I told people this too, is just like, look, you have to have 1,000 episode commitment. And if you don't, you shouldn't do it. And truly, I think that a lot of people do it just because they think that they should, but they don't get that mindset from the beginning that you're talking about. Like, I have fun with this. When you're telling me like, look, I have fun when I get on a podcast, me too. I like doing it. And I think you have to, because you're that initial 3-month, piece that you were talking about, where like, listen, I didn't get that many listens. I didn't get a deal out of this. You know what I mean? You can't equate that social presence, the social capital for a deal. And it's hard. Like it is work to do this, to put this all together, and it costs money.
Yeah.
You're not going to get over that. You're not going to keep it going because you don't actually like doing this. This isn't your thing. And I think that that's super important. And then lastly, you said that, look, I got this deal, Ben Lavender. Shut up, Ben Lavender. What's up? I literally just had it happen to me within the past 5 days. I had one of my business partners, a real estate agent. Shout out Adrian Barrera. She's a guest on my show. Shout out Suzanne Powers, also a guest on my show. One was making an offer on her $900,000 listing. And hey, I know that you know Suzanne Powers. I call her Susie P. And can you give her a call to let her know that our client is well qualified and wants to get it? And then we connect the two. And I mean, what's the likelihood of that deal going through just simply because of the relationship that I have because of a freaking podcast?
Right.
Because of a relationship that I actually made on a show. I cut you off, but I want to hear more about this. Like I just want to capitalize on it. I think that all of that is just pure fire. But like in the context of get over that hump to go do social, keep it going, Val.
Yeah, I think the other thing is people don't always know where to start or where to get content from. And this is very understandable because coming into the industry, you're going to be a loan officer. You're not coming in to be a marketer. So I think there are certain people that come in with a marketing background that does them well. But for majority of loan officers, they don't have any idea. So that's half of what I love about being in this industry is that there are so many people to help because they don't have that marketing background. And for me, it's so simple because it's what I know and what I do. But for them, it's just not because their expertise is something completely different. So finding that content inspiration can be a struggle for some people. But the reality is it's right at their fingertips every single day. I mean, everything that you're doing as a loan officer, whether it's answering simple client questions on the initial call, There are just so many places where you can get this inspiration. And like I tell people, think about who you're trying to target. That's a lot of the problem, is that people don't say, okay, what type of loans do I really specialize in? Whether it's first-time home buyers or if you're doing reverse mortgages, those are going to be two completely different audiences that you're trying to talk to. So if you're putting out content that's attracting the wrong audience, then it's not going to be as successful as you would like it to be. So thinking about your target audience and like, let's say it's reverse mortgages. What do those people need to know? Because there's so much, not only misinformation, but just lack of knowing information at all around mortgages, that there are so many opportunities for you to be putting out content that just answers their questions before they have a chance to ask. Because if you're educating them and letting them know, like, maybe now is a good time to refinance or get a mortgage, like, that's just enlightening them. And they're going to be more likely to come to you if they have follow-up questions, because you're already giving them all this value. So like I said, it is a long-term play, and over time you will see results from it. But it can also be that direct, like, wow, I didn't know this. Can you tell me more about how low rates are right now and how I could refinance? Like, you can get those one-off deals like that, but it's really just about being in that mindset of thinking about who you're trying to target and what their problems or unanswered questions are.
I love it. I love all that. All right. Well, Val, we're gonna have to have you back on. I'm really enjoying this conversation. Maybe we do something just about,
I would love it.
Just all about right, marketing and podcasting. But in the context of the show, we have a couple questions that we ask everybody that comes on, and I want to make sure that we get these out. So first one is this. Do you feel like you ever had a big break?
Ooh. No, I wouldn't say I feel like I had a big break. I guess, okay, let me change my answer actually. Kind of. I think that where I really saw, not necessarily the payoff, but like the results of what I've been consistently doing and just like putting out content, connecting with people on social media. This is one thing I didn't say earlier. I'm getting off track here, but when I started at AIM, the first day that I was in the office was the day before Philadelphia shut down for COVID. So I went from meeting my coworkers for one day to being work from home for the next 3-4 months. So that was also a curveball in the whole situation. So having said that, I didn't actually meet anyone face to face for a solid year of me being in the industry. So the first event that I went to was Originator Connect, which is where I met you actually in Vegas. And starting to go through event season and walking down, I'd be walking with like some people from my team, and just knowing so many people as I go through this event, like, hey, I've seen you on social media, or people coming up to me like, hey, Val, right? I'm like, yeah, I don't even know who you are, but like, great to meet you. So it's just the consistent payoff of like, okay, I've been making these connections and putting out content that people are obviously seeing on social media. And now I have all these friends in real life. It's like you meet them and you're like, wow, you're actually real. You don't just live in a computer screen. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a big break, but that's where I really saw like, okay, it's working. Like, people actually know who I am. And that was cool. It's like a cool feeling because you just make all these connections and meet these really cool people in the industry.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I love that too. If you were to do it all over again, Val, what would you change?
Can I answer that I wouldn't change anything?
You can answer it however you want.
Yeah, I think I would say that I wouldn't change anything, and this is why. Because going through the industry, I think you always kind of look for, you can feel like you sort of like fit in somewhere, but it's just not where you're meant to be, I guess I would say, if I'm getting like philosophical. And just going through the process of like, okay, this is great and I'm learning something from this. It's really valuable and adds to my career, but just waiting for those opportunities and everything to fall into place was like, and it finally happened, right? Like I started talking to Art of Homeownership and I realized it's really great people that are over here. And now I'm at the point where I've found my people, right? And I try to not get the shiny object syndrome, like, oh, like looking for a new opportunity, or it's when you find people, it's not bad to be loyal to them. I think that sometimes in today's day and age, it's always like looking for the best opportunity, look for new open doors. But at the end of the day, if you like what you do and enjoy the people that you're working with, and you're always trying to grow because of them, I think it's not a bad thing to stay somewhere for a long time, right? And so now this is officially the longest I've ever been at a company. Actually, I've been with Art of Homeownership now a year, and I couldn't be happier because they're amazing people. And I mean, they have, I've actually started working with some of the people over at Neo as well. And again, just, I talk to these people, and a lot of the questions that I ask them when like working with them on their social media is, why do you like being at Neo? And like, how does it allow you to do your job at a higher level? And the answers that I've gotten just assure me that I'm in a really good place, and everyone feels seen and appreciated and like they're striving to get better. And that's what it's all about. So I guess that's a really long-winded answer for saying I would not change anything. And I feel like now I'm at the place where this is where I'm meant to be. I'm really growing here, and it's a good feeling.
I love that. No, that's a great answer. And it's the experiences that you had to, the adversity that you had to overcome that got you to the position where you're at right now. And if you didn't, fail or do the wrong thing, maybe you wouldn't have been in the position. And I love how you talk about, the like, look, I want to stay here forever type of a thing. I think you're right. Like, look, you could be offered more money somewhere. You could be offered whatever it is, but a lot of times it comes down to the people that you're working with. I interviewed Barry Habib, and he says that one of the most important things about really life in general is loyalty. And I would argue that a guy that's been around for a while, why he would say that is because a lot of times people just aren't. They just aren't. They'll go somewhere else for $1. And where's the relationship? Did it really matter? Was there really a relationship? And no, I really love that, Val.
And I think too, to that point, when you're talking to someone like Barry Habib, I think when you get to that level and you start to become uber successful, it's like you don't always know if people are there for the right reasons. And being in the position that I am, saying this in a very humble place,
right?
There's people that I interact with that they're benefiting from what I'm doing, but it's not like I can really give the world to them. And the fact that they're loyal at that stage, that's when you know, like, these are people that genuinely appreciate you and value who you are and what you do. And I think that's really important, because then when you do get to that place where you're successful, it's going to be the same people that are there with you and still valuing and appreciating you.
I love it, for sure. Was there ever a time, Val, you felt like giving up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Elaborate.
And I mean, I've been through it at Art of Homeownership specifically, and I'm glad that I have the people there to, even our president, Melissa, she's someone that I confide in when I feel that way, and very patient and understanding. Though I think like it takes a leader to say, like, yeah, you have things to learn, because I've really only been in marketing for 2 years now. But it's okay that there's a lot of things to learn, right? Like there's so much room to get better. It's just about appreciating the journey. And like, again, so cliche and corny, but it's so true. And just being okay with getting a little bit better every day. Like that's what it really took to get in that mindset of like, no one is coming to rescue you and give you all the marketing knowledge in the world. It's just never going to happen. So if you want to be successful, you have to just put in the time and get better little by little. And it was a hard little hump to get over. I feel like it was maybe my quarter life crisis kicking in, but I got over it. And I think that it's, I try to look for things to kind of talk me out of that mindset when it gets to that point. So for me, it was Extreme Ownership, the book Extreme Ownership. That was something that, like, at that time, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like, it's no one else's fault but your own. If you're sucking or you feel like you don't know things, like, you have all of the resources to figure it out and to get better. So just figure it out and get better. So I 100% have felt like quitting and felt overwhelmed and like I couldn't do it. But you just realize, like, I felt like that before and I figured it out and got through it, so I can do it again.
I love that. I love that. All right, final question to set it up. So there is a young Val out there, and maybe they're in a small town in Pennsylvania. Maybe they're a jock going through school, not really going to class. Maybe they're getting a marketing major. Maybe they're in school learning stuff that maybe isn't of value. Maybe they're serving, waiting tables. Maybe they don't know what they want to do in their life. Maybe they started a podcast. Maybe it didn't get a lot of views. Maybe they're just starting out on their social path and they're at a brick wall. What advice would you give to someone looking to get it done?
I love this. I love that. So a few things, I guess I would say, is number one is to just put yourself out there without really caring what people think or say. And not that I've really gone through a process of like putting stuff out there and people just shit talking me, but just being able to say, okay, I'm going to make mistakes if I post a video and it's not perfect. Like, it doesn't have to be, but just figure out what you care about and post about it. Like, that's as simple as I could make it out to be, is like, connect with people who you feel like are going to get you to the next level and be loyal to them. That was what we just talked about. And just like be okay with not being perfect and kind of just winging it. And I guess that's very easy to say from my personality because I'm a very wing it kind of person, but I think it's done a lot of good for me over the past 2 years, is just putting yourself out there and getting comfortable with the people in your industry and learning new things all the time that's been pivotal for me, is just like always self-educate. Don't worry about someone else teaching you things, like learn it yourself. That's something that was a big takeaway from my first job, was like, my boss would always tell me, don't ask me anything that you haven't Googled already. Like, I would ask him a question. He's like, did you Google it? And if I didn't, he would make me go and look it up myself. Like, that's a big thing, because when you get into these industries, like, I'm not going to sit here and text Ryan Grant when I have a question. He's going to laugh at me. Like, go figure it out. And so that would be my first big takeaway, is like, put yourself out there, always learn things, figure it out on your own. What else? I guess I would say, and this is like, I'll elaborate on this, but none of it really matters. Like, at the end of the day,
I love it.
If you like really put things in perspective, one day you can make a mistake and feel like it is absolutely the end of the world. But like, in hindsight, it doesn't matter. Like, it's probably not going to matter to anyone else. So just stressing over these little things that happen when you're first starting out in a career, I think it can just seem like I'm a failure, everything is crashing and burning, but it's really not. It's just about like brushing it off and moving on to the next thing. I like, this is a good example. We had a customer, or like a list from one of the events that we went to. And so all the information is in there. So it would have like their names, their contact information, yada, yada. Some of these people we had already connected with, were already in our CRM. Like, these were people that maybe were going to sign up for Art of Homeownership. And when I went to upload this list, I messed something up. And our entire CRM was like, had mismatched information. Like people had the wrong emails attached to their contacts. We didn't know what stage anyone was at. I was up until 1 a.m. trying to figure this out. Like I thought it was the end of the world. And I reached out to our CRM. They were like, just upload the list again, like correct. And then it's fixed. And it literally took me 30 seconds to do it. And I was like, why did I just stress over that so much, to the point where I was like, I'm going to tell them to fire me. Like that's how like awful I felt at the time. I'm like, I don't deserve this. Please just let me go. But it's just not that big of a deal. You realize that most things can be fixed. And even if they can't be fixed, have people around you that are understanding enough to say, like, this is someone that is still learning, and just appreciate that journey.
A little better every day. No one is coming to rescue you. Google it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, those are my takeaways. Like, give a shit about things, but they also don't matter. Like, it's a good balance to figure out.
I think it's a Jim Rohn quote. Maybe it's Darren Hardy quoting Jim Rohn, but he says that, you know, if you're really stressed out about something, just think about it. 20 years from now, you're not even going to remember this at all. None of it. That, and this debilitating feeling that you have right now where you're just totally frozen, you're not even going to remember 20 years from now. All right. I want to thank our guests for joining us today. And I want to especially thank Val for coming on the show. And Val, if someone wanted to reach out to you to connect, what would be the best place for them to do so?
Yeah, definitely connect with me on the LinkedIn, Facebook, Val Miller. Easy to find me. I post a lot of marketing nerd content. And of course, Instagram at feelgood_marketing. You can see some clips from my podcasts. And then you can see all of my past podcasts on YouTube, Feel Good Marketing Podcast. Always happy to help. So if anyone needs marketing tips, have questions, or just want to chat, always don't hesitate to reach out.
I love it, Val. And I reach out too. Val is a great resource. All right. I want to thank everybody again for joining us. If you've enjoyed the show and you've taken some value, hey, can you do me a favor? Could you open up Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom and tap a 5-star? It's that easy. Super easy.
Just get it done.
Just get it done. You know, super easy thing. Write us a review, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend. All those things make a huge difference in helping us reach more people. Once again, I am Jimmy Ryan. This has been the Get It Done podcast. Thanks so much for listening.